Okay, we are live, so welcome back everyone to another town hall. Let me just share my screen here. We'll get some notes up and we'll get started. Okay, get my windows organized here.
We actually have we actually have a request for a new chapter. Unfortunately, we're a little light on internet and power here at the house because we just weathered a hurricane.
Right. Yes.
So I will get on that as soon as everything's stable. I've made 3 tries at it and then our power goes out.
Yeah, did you get flooded as well?
No, not too bad. We're in pretty good shape.
Part.
I mean, it could have been so much worse.
You're in the southern part of the state?
No, we're right in Tampa Bay.
Oh, Tampa Bay. Okay.
Yeah, it turned just before it got us. And
holy smokes.
I mean, we feel awful for the people in Sarasota and Fort Myers, that area. And
yeah,
nobody saw that turn coming, you know. But it was, I guess, so much flooding. It was the biggest. There was a lot of surge.
It's like 12 feet of water.
12 to 15, yeah.
Yeah, what do you do with that?
You know what? I don't know. Our house is basically, we have steel shutters that we had put on right when the wife had me out there putting up shutters. But it was, it blew pretty hard, but this was an ugly, huge, very huge storm. It was just gigantic and it's slow. That's what happens when they're incredibly slow like that. And they just sit on top of you. And people don't realize there's tornadoes in the hurricanes. So it's ugly.
Well, I'm glad you're okay. I've got several friends out there, one outside of Orlando and another down Fort Lauderdale. And they're both okay too. But
Orlando got hit pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah, she was lucky because she lives in an area where it's kind of raised up a little bit. So at least as far as the flooding, her neighborhood was not as bad.
We have a friend on the 3rd floor of an apartment that got flooded, just to put it in perspective.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're okay. So, John, welcome. And let's get into this. So attendance, let's see, who's able to help with notes today? Ben, are you able to do that?
Yep, and I also added a link in the chat. So for anybody who wants to follow along, you can open up the notes. It's a bit of there's all these arrows to click on that sort of open up drop downs, and
it's like an outline format. So you click these little arrows next to anyone because what I'm seeing might not be what you're seeing. You might have some of these collapsed. So yeah, you can just open them up like this to see what's what.
I tend to get a little lost in here, but there was a setting that you showed me that minimizes all the things that have been canceled out.
If you go up to the top level, these 3 dots here, you can collapse all, and it just kind of organizes it for you, and then you can kind of drill back down to where you want to be if that helps.
Awesome.
So there's also the setting for hiding completed items.
Yes, up here on the right, there's a check mark. And that allows you to toggle on and off completed items because we have a bunch of items in here that, let me see if I can show you. There you go. So there's a lot of stuff that you're not seeing because it's all been, marked as complete. So you can, if you're seeing a bunch of that stuff, that's just click the check mark up there and they'll go away. Okay, so, well, introductions. Let's do that first. So, Sarah, welcome.
Hi. I've been to one of these meetings before. I think a couple of months ago, but it's good to see you again. I'm a journalist, currently freelance in Minneapolis, and I have done mostly public health and healthcare focused stories. I met Ben in Cambodia while I was working for an NGO there and getting my master's in public health. And I have a background in medical research. I used to be a clinical research coordinator in neurology at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and in obstetrics at Emory Medical School. So I'm really excited to be here and combine journalism and healthcare and coordinating. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here, and I think
happy to have you here. You certainly got all the qualifications. That's
yeah,
great.
I mean, I was going to say, just based on that background, we couldn't have asked for a better, fit for this. So thank you. That's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
A little bit of a background for Adam and everybody.
All of us.
So I've been involved with working with e-NABLE the last 3 years, and with John's help and everybody here, helped to put together sort of a fellowship guideline for media coordination. I've got a new gig that starts next week, and Sarah is interested in joining as a e-NABLE fellow and continuing that work. She's got a really long list of skills. So I think in the beginning, she'll be looking at the previous work that I have modeled out, but there's a lot of room to grow. So I think it's going to be pretty exciting to see where she takes things. And I met with John and Jeremy last week, and we looked at a couple projects that are sort of immediate that we can work on together. But moving forward, I think Sarah's background in healthcare and in journalism, I think are going to be really exciting resources for the community. And she's continuing to work on, is it a weekly radio show or podcast in Minneapolis?
So right now I'm finishing up another healthcare story for NPR News, and editing a health podcast. So, yeah.
Perfect.
Do you have a homepage or something where we can catch up on some of your past work?
I'm working on it. I don't have a website up yet, but I can send some links if anyone is interested. And I think probably within a month, the website will be up. So,
Cool.
yeah.
And her research
way,
in Cambodia was really pretty impressive too. It's cool stuff. So she's got a sense of kind of world accessibility, human rights work as well. So,
with Ben taking on this new teaching role, I was a little bit concerned just because he's built so much, and I don't want to see that go away. I don't want to see that just kind of dissolve, and that can happen if you put the wrong person in place that doesn't have the right sort of skill set and background to do that. And I honestly, with you, Sarah, I feel confident not only that you'll be able to do what he was doing, but more importantly, build on it and make it into more than it even currently is. I think it's wonderful.
Thank you so much. I'm really, really happy to be here. So
terrific. Well, good news. Thank you both, Ben and Sarah, and for making that happen. I don't know if we don't need to get into this now, but I'm just kind of curious. The arrangements that we had with Ben were such that we were kind of going through this process of a Lumio proposal to fund his work. Are we going to be sort of transitioning that over to Sarah at some point? Was that discussed?
I know that the last proposal, I think John made a proposal in Lumio for extending the project. Sort of the media coordination, and that was, that passed. There weren't any people that disagreed with that. I think what we could probably do is underneath that post, we can announce that there's been a new fellow to the project. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be something to be voted on. Why don't I share a link to that Lumio, that last Lumio vote.
But in other words, you do see the funding sort of shifting at some point from you to her?
Yeah, and actually, I think my gig starts, my new job starts Monday. So really, it can be as long as everybody is on board with having Sarah pick up the reins. I think having her start in October, looking at October as a transition month, I can be supporting her in off hours, after school hours. We can be meeting, and I can still meet with John, and we can try to sort of I can be a mentor for her onboarding with John. I'll do my best, but it'll have to be after the teaching hours.
Absolutely. Does anybody here have any objections or concerns at all? Adam, I can't see you.
No objections.
Great. Please, proceed. I think this was just, we were so lucky for this find, for things to come together.
Sarah, for us, it's really an unexpected breakthrough. I'm really glad that it occurred to Ben at the last minute that you were the perfect candidate. I want to say that it's nice that we're able to pay you. We also recognize that we're not paying you a huge amount, and whether we're paying you or not, you should understand that this really works when the person who holds the position realizes that they can now sort of fill it with their own particular gifts and ideas. So we're quite open to your own ideas for expansion or changing or marketing, et cetera. And as we can see with Ben, because we recognize that you may not be with us forever, it occurs to me that focusing on marketing and in such a way that it increases your visibility as a journalist in this space, as well as enables visibility in this same space, is a big opportunity. But that's all up for you to prioritize as you think, and compare notes with all of us.
Welcome, Sarah. Welcome to the team.
Thank you so much.
Yes, awesome.
And Sarah and I have talked about a couple other projects, like the Dominican Republic project as being, that was a story that she was interested in and has been following. Yeah. There could be opportunities, over the course of her fellowship to, additional to this role, propose a project. For example, Kyle Reeser going to Tanzania, organizing that whole trip, getting some specific funds for that, partnering with Creality, doing crowdfunding. So there are opportunities for, some specific work in the field, and that's all sort of an additional proposal, and John and Jeremy and others can help to guide that.
Okay, good stuff. All right, well, let's move on. Action items should be quick because the first one is mine and I haven't done it yet, so that's going to wait. We did learn last time that John is receiving the emails that go to chapters@enable.org, so anything that does come in, he'll forward to you, Rick, and as soon as I'm able to get the change done, I will. It's just, as long as I know those emails aren't going, into an unmonitored inbox, I lowered the priority a little bit, so I will get to it when I can. Adam is still working on trying to coordinate a meeting amongst the sort of new leadership team in the US here. I don't suspect there are any updates, but Adam, anything there?
I reached out to Eric Bubar this morning just to get a one-on-one scheduled with him, just because he's the one person in that group who's been consistently replying to
he's always been really
the meeting request. Yeah, so I didn't want to keep him dangling because he seemed he seems to be interested in getting this moving as well.
Right.
And we're going to be trying, I believe, next Tuesday evening, we're going to try to connect and see what we can do. And actually, Sarah, that might be something, might be a good opportunity for us to get better acquainted too, unless you'd prefer a separate meeting. But I'm just to throw in my 2 cents from the last discussion. I'm very excited to work with you and see how we can align our efforts here, because there's a lot about your background that sounds relevant to some of my interests here.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I don't know if you're looking to keep it small or whatever, but I'd be interested in joining you for that too.
Sure. No, I just shoot. It's not a private club.
Yeah, I'd love to be there.
Yeah,
So,
sounds wonderful.
And I don't know if there's time. I mean, I know that Sarah introduced herself, but does everybody want to just take one quick minute and just introduce themselves and their
no,
role?
I was just thinking the same thing, Ben. Yeah, as Adam was talking there, thinking, yeah, maybe she doesn't know his background. So let's do that. Why don't we start with you, Adam, since we were just talking?
Okay. Sure. Well, hi, Sarah. I am Adam Jennings. I am a physical therapist. I wrapped up my doctorate back in 2014 and spent a few years in the clinical space focusing on amputee rehabilitation. Before that, I spent a year in medical school and hated it, and was trying desperately to think of some way that I could work with a population of amputees in a way that felt more meaningful to me. And physical therapy was the answer I found. After a few years in the clinical space, I got a certification in amputee rehab. I actually was offered a job with an electronic medical records company, and left for the corporate world to do that for a while. Ended up getting an MBA with some certifications in change management and sort of process design. And I have been more active instead of just a fan. I've been a part of the e-NABLE community for, I think, right at 2 months now, maybe 2 months and some change. And I have taken on a volunteer position here as an outreach coordinator or outreach director, whatever. I don't think we've nailed we've nailed down any titles or anything. But really, what I'm interested in is, and we can get into more detail here. But I'm really interested in expanding the scope and mission of what our community can provide, and finding more targeted opportunities to help specific communities, and not just relying upon individuals that are geographically close to the chapter sites that we have in our group. But we can go into all that next week.
Terrific. Yeah, I mean, just talk about two powerhouses between Adam and Sarah. Great backgrounds. Rick, how about you?
I had to find my mute button, sorry. Rick Williams. I've been with e-NABLE a long time, mostly in the background. I'm a builder and a software developer on my own, just working on our own little projects and doing my best to share with the e-NABLE team whatever we come up with.
But he's been with us a long time, but he's actually taken a leadership role only in the last 6 months to a year, when many of us became aware for the first time that he's something of a savant when it comes to electronics and fabrication and all sorts of things.
And he's
also taken on the undefined role of what?
Well,
Chaptermeister?
He's running our help desk, our email help desk. He's handling badge reviewing and awarding our digital badge system, and managing the chapter program for reviewing chapter applications, among other things, as well as making all kinds of innovations himself, like the NFC ring he was just showing us. So, and one of the things, I want to mention a couple of things. One of the things I love about Rick's work is that he really thinks creatively, way beyond just, 3D printing a hand or an arm that somebody else designed. He comes up with all kinds of assistive tech designs of varying types. And I recently did an interview with him through my company, 3D Universe. We do a series called 3D Universe Untethered. And we did an interview with Rick and went through and talked about a lot of his projects. And I shared that in the hub. Maybe Ben could find a link or I can get to it when I'm done talking here. But that would be worth checking out. It's a lot of fun to see and hear about his background and the work he does. So anyway, yeah, he's been a great addition to the team. I know Sarah already knows Ben, but Ben, just kind of for the record here, if anyone else watching or now or later, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I've been involved with e-NABLE the last 3 years, and some change, working on it started out with a newsletter and then grew into a bunch of different projects. We were shifting over from Google Plus to the hub. So it was sort of a pivotal moment to be able to jump in and think about how the community worked. And it's been really exciting to be involved with this project. And I'm hoping to stay involved, but sort of in a different capacity. And, definitely for moving forward, it's going to be pretty exciting to find new ways to connect with e-NABLE. So I think, that'll be the next chapter.
Awesome.
Sarah, it's worth noting that we had a newsletter before Ben came on board, but he continued and changed the format of that and standardized the format of that. He has been, you're going to learn all of this, but I'm just pointing these things out as innovations. He became sort of a mop-up tagger of posts on the hub, which put him in a position to really know sort of more about what was happening on the hub and in the global community than anyone else, which is obviously very helpful because he also became therefore a connection maker. He introduced what is now sort of a fixture of the community of these once a month meetings that my guess is you're going to end up moderating, but that also has added a sort of cadence and coherence to the community that we didn't have before. And those are all good things. They're all good things. My guess is that you'll take them on and then you'll say, we could do things better. But just to acknowledge the innovations that Ben has institutionalized and go away, as we can see, that when he moves on, there's a pretty good chance it won't all just fall apart.
And while you're talking, John, go ahead and introduce yourself.
It won't fall apart. But yeah,
John,
did
you just connection just freeze, or are you just sitting there very happily? I think he's frozen.
It looks frozen.
Okay, let's see. I don't know if I should. Okay, I'll go ahead and introduce myself while we're waiting for his connection to resume. I'm Jeremy, one of the co-founders along with John and others, and have just always kind of helped where I can behind the scenes mostly, though I do a lot of 3D printing and I've made a lot of devices for people, but mostly I do behind the scenes stuff, maintaining our online assets, some of the web stuff. I kind of built the hub and migrated us into that. My team built e-NABLE Web Central, and although that's not necessarily our platform of choice going forward, that's one of the things we're working on. But I help with a lot of the online infrastructure and just like I said, doing what I can behind the scenes. I've run these meetings for a long time too. John, no John. All right, we'll have John introduce himself when he's back, but I think we all know John. He's one of the original co-founders of e-NABLE and has done quite a lot, including giving talks around the world and helping us to spread the word. So I'm going to move us on for now. Action items. Okay, we covered all these. John and Ben meet with Ian. Did you guys have a meeting of the educators?
We had the monthly educators meeting. Nusha also joined. I can share a link to that.
That's my story.
We caught most of it. I was at when your connection went, I was just asking you to introduce yourself. So I went ahead and introduced you for you. I hope you don't mind.
Well,
I think we all know you anyway. So you were saying, Ben, about the education or the intern meeting?
Yeah, Nusha and Ian were in the education meeting, talking a bit about the plans moving forward. I'm going to add a link to that in the chat. But in a nutshell, Nusha is going to be working on bridging the gap between the NIH 3D print exchange. The website is being updated. There's some new opportunities for, not just adding new content, which is pretty outdated at this point, but also changing the dashboard and how it works, having the opportunity, like in GitHub, to have forking, so you can sort of follow the progression of iterations and designs.
I had a question, Ben. Sorry for the interruption, but was there any discussion about? We talked in the last town hall about this idea of other types of assistive devices other than hands and arms. Some of these very simple to make types of assistive tools, and breaking things into categories where there might be, you know, easier to harder projects where the hands and arms might be the harder level, but there might be easier things you could make too. Was anything like that discussed as part of this process, or is it worth one of us following up with Noosh about that?
I think it's worth following up, but it is something, the metadata of the devices is a pretty key element in structuring the updates. So basically figuring out, you know, on an engineering level, some of the similarities between the devices, but also just what you're saying, having sort of a progression of complexity.
Okay.
And I do think that we don't have to be just focusing on, you know, prosthetic hands. I think we can start including some of these other more peripheral projects. Assistive tech is kind of the, yeah.
Jeremy, we talked about that a bit last week with Tainara during the first healthcare roundtable. About halfway through that conversation, if you want to listen back, we talked a little bit about some of the options and some of the tools that she has designed in lieu of prosthetic, in like terminal devices. So
excellent. Okay. Yeah, so hopefully we're going to have Nish join us for one of these meetings, one of these town halls, and the rest of us can kind of get an introduction there and have some input into that process. But I'm glad that that's getting going. Exciting. Let's move on here. So let's see, summary of metrics. I apologize, guys. I ran out of time today. This is the second week in a row, and I was actually going to ask about that because this was one of the things I was kind of hoping to sort of get myself out from under. As you can see here, I've been filling out this spreadsheet every week going back to 2019 with all of these sort of key metrics about the hub and chapters and e-NABLE Web Central and our help desk activities and all that. And it gets summarized into this table, which I share each week. But I seem to keep running out of time Friday mornings, and it's such a simple task. It's just time consuming. It's just a matter of pulling up a report on the hub. We have a metrics dashboard, and it's a matter of basically copying and pasting a bunch of numbers across and then doing a screen grab on this chart here. I guess I'm just going to mention again, I'd put out a call for help on this a long time back, seeing if there was anyone that might want to take this over from me. But I think for now, at this point, I'm questioning whether I should just stop doing it, because honestly, I don't know if these statistics have really been helpful. Are they being used? If they are helpful, I see Rick waving his hand. I want to be careful we don't put too much on Rick here, but Rick, you'd be a great fit for this if you did want to take it on. I could easily show you how I do this.
I'm happy to help you with it. I don't mind.
Do the rest of you, do you see value in what I'm showing you right now? Do you think there's value in keeping every week having a look at how many, how our numbers are on the hub and, devices delivered through e-NABLE Web Central and our chapters and e-NABLE fund balance? I mean, these are just some of the key metrics that we look at each week, but I just wonder if over time, does this just become numeric noise, or is this actually helping people? I mean, I have charts too, but we never look at these, of how things are changing over time. We really never do anything with these, though. There's our e-NABLE fund kind of over time, So you tell me.
To me, the charts are more informative than the row of numbers, but I also believe that the person who updates it each week gets a sense of what's going on and will notice if something unusual is happening. So even though I admit that my eyes glaze over when I'm looking at the wall of numbers, it's comforting to be able to glance and know that we're.
Well, that's a good point. When I would present this each week, I would tend to call out, if one of these numbers had shifted significantly from the last week, I would call that out. So you're right, that is maybe a helpful mechanism. So Rick, if you're willing, I think you're a great fit for this, and I can easily show you the process I go through. It only takes about 5 minutes, and I do it the morning before these meetings. It's just my mornings tend to be pretty tight these days. So.
I think it's data that even if you didn't care about it on a weekly basis, I think the time will come when you'll wish you had it. And if it's not there, you have no baseline, you have no trends.
It's a great point.
I mean, even if it wasn't a weekly priority, I think the time's going to come when you want to see trends.
All right.
We could put it in an R statistical engine, and we could ask crazy questions and overlaps, and it'd be kind of fun to do that, I think.
I was going to add to that. I think the time is going to come really soon for an annual report, and that's really where our data comes together. I shared a link with the e-NABLE bot post, so that's something that is shared in the hub once a week, and it doesn't have all the depth that your report does, Jeremy. But I wonder if it's not time to, whether it's MASV or somebody else, look at your report, look at this report, and see, is there some sort of a compromise that could involve, a little bit more automation of some of the activity
Sure.
that could be automated, and maybe adjusting it so it's as easy as possible. So instead of it being manually putting all these numbers in and then making a screenshot, maybe the process for Rick would be
I like what you're thinking. I mean, anything can be automated. The trick with this is I'm pulling numbers from 3, 4, 5 different systems. I'm pulling from e-NABLE Web Central, from the hub, from Google Analytics, from Open Collective, so you'd essentially have to be coding for like 4 or 5 different APIs. I wonder if that would be more work than it's worth, but.
Well, but does your report include the information tabulated by the bot?
Well, yeah, no, my report doesn't. Later in our agenda, when we look at from the hub and I talk about, posts of the week, that comes from the metrics report, but that doesn't go into what we're talking about here numerically. This is just about the numeric metrics. So it's just, these all come from the hub. So that comes from our hub metrics reporting. Average session duration comes from Google Analytics. e-NABLE Web Central comes from a reporting dashboard inside of EWC.
And you're copying and pasting all of these manually?
Well, yeah. I mean, I pull up the metrics on the hub, which looks like this. So you put in a date range, and it gives you down at the bottom, gives you all these numbers down here. And yeah, it's just a matter of knowing which number. I grab it here, copy, flip over to my spreadsheet and paste it in. Yeah, it's a lot of copy and pasting. The number of chapters is just something that we track manually, and that's long overdue for an audit. So we don't really know what that number is. This comes out of our help desk ticketing system, which is a totally separate system that I log into and have a report that I run and shows me how many tickets there were that week. And then the e-NABLE fund balance comes from the Open Collective page. So it's like all these different places we're going to grab data. It would be a tricky thing to automate.
I do a fair amount of that these days. And so if in the course of conveying the information to Rick, you also enumerate the URLs in such a way that it might happen, then
well, the problem is the authentication. These are in, admin screens. So I don't know how you could programmatically, you know what I'm saying? I don't know how you could get into an EWC admin dashboard or
it is possible to program a computer to emulate clicks and that kind of thing. And I do a fair amount of that.
Okay.
So it's not out of the question.
All right. I think having Rick take it over is definitely the easiest and shortest path. Right. So let's start there. And during that process, we'll get feedback on what we can optimize or simplify.
Good.
So I appreciate the offer, Rick. Let's get together outside of this meeting and I'll take you through it, but it's pretty straightforward. It's really just going across, filling the numbers, and some of these autofill, like as soon as you put in a number of total members, that next column fills in automatically because it can calculate the difference. So some of those get filled in for you as you go. So I'll take you through all that. Okay, on we go. And that brings us, I was just talking about this, from the hub. So each week I pull some of the posts that had the most comments and likes and things that had the most discussion going. The first one was from, I don't know if it's Dare Blue, seeking help with a customized device. So this is for himself. He's a partial hand amputee. And he said somebody helped by printing fingers, but they didn't have time to figure out a thumb. So he says he has and this is the part I found interesting. I have a prosthesis, but the printed fingers are much better. That's just an interesting statement right there. Is there anyone willing to take on a challenge of creating a thumb that could be integrated with the fingers? And I thought I saw somebody was it you, Rick, that did something where you were connecting multiple individual fingers?
Yeah, what we had done was, it kind of depends. We had a couple of them that they had fingers, but not all of them worked. So we were building, imagine like if it were teeth, we bridged. And we had the fingers that were functional helping drive the ones that were not, to bridge them. And then, we also have like lobster thumb and thing like that. It's easy to borrow from, but we're really starting to move more towards sockets for these. It just makes an awful lot more sense for us.
Like each finger has a socket, you mean?
It depends on how many are missing. The one you have one on that there's been a request on, for instance, for that child.
Okay.
And because we didn't have a lot of information, that one would be perfect, for instance, for a socket, depending on if those fingers are functional. We've worked with some of the kids that have the limb deficiency syndrome, and those work very well because they may have only one or two nubs that are actually usable.
Well,
and then that one can.
I'm gonna go ahead and tag you on this post, Rick, just to call your attention to it. And if you could take a look at that later, and maybe
sure,
you might be able to offer some advice there.
Yeah, my internet's been on and off, guys. We haven't been able to sometimes make it through a post, and then we kind of fall out. And
yeah,
our UPS system fried, so it's been a lot of fun.
That's the uninterrupted power supply, not the delivery guys. All right, on we go. Thank you, Rick. It sounds like you might be able to offer some advice there, but
yeah, it kind of just depends on what works and what doesn't sometimes, and we're finding that it's a lot easier than people think now, especially with you, Jeremy. I mean, being able to make those sockets now with the vacuum forming.
Oh, okay.
It's hugely. It's so much simpler.
I'd like to learn more about that.
Yeah, since you're kind of the expert on vacuum forming. So, I mean, you can kind of see that where you could make an alginate and then make a plaster, right? And then just vacuum form on that. Now that's your basis for the socket. And then we just put fingers as needed. And that's what we've done in the past. It works beautifully, simply, cheaply. It's just
interesting. Okay. What was that, John?
I said, duh. I never thought of that. That sounds very powerful.
It really is. I think the big limiting factor right now in terms of getting, sort of mass adoption of that approach is the number of people that have vacuum formers. Now, Rick showed a very interesting approach to very cheaply building your own. And
$70. That was our baseline for a 12 by 12. We actually wrote it up and sent it to another person who now is building their own, but $70 is about.
But did you come up with that yourself, or are there, did somebody already do like an Instructables or something like that that's well documented?
We did our own and later found out they're selling them on eBay. So,
but are the designs readily available? Do we have a link we can give to people to say, here are instructions on everything you need to buy and put together to make one of these?
You can make them. It's almost cheaper to buy the eBay ones. If you go on eBay and you look for $60 or $70, you can get one already constructed with the PVC if you don't feel very handy. And it kind of just depends on the size of the platform.
So go to eBay and just search for what? Just
vacuum forming box.
Vacuum forming.
And after we built ours, we were embarrassed how cheap they were.
All right.
And that's with the PVC, the holes done, the pegboard, the frame. By the time you're done, if you're building more than one, it's probably cheaper to do it yourself. If you're doing a one-off, it's a lot cheaper just to pay the $70.
Great. Well, there we go.
Avoid the aggravation. And if you have all you need is a shop vac. at that point.
That's actually a great lead into the next post that I wanted to highlight, which is from our very own Rick. And it's essentially just encouraging people to be creative. We've talked about this before, about how, you know, hey, we can do a lot more than just make hands and arms for people. And he shared a really cool post here about some of the other work he's been doing, in this case, working with assistive devices for the sight disabled, and you know, doing things like 3D printing sonograms, and even things that have nothing to do with making necessarily. He was talking about one of the things they do is try to sort of you know, find out you know, how we can help make people feel better. And one of the things they do is talk about who their heroes are, and then go out and find those people and get, like, you know, signed photos or some other donated item and everything. And it was a really cool post, and he shared some videos and photos here. So let me, Rick, is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about this process or post that you shared?
We had no idea we could even do this. And that very first video that's on there, you'll see is an actual e-NABLE cuff. That video, right? Yeah, that's an e-NABLE cuff. And what we had done is when I found out that the person, this was their hero, the drummer from Liliac, and they're out in California. So I contacted them, and they donated their photo and they donated their signature. And when we held it up to the light, it did this.
Yeah,
I was, quite frankly,
basically
totally
made it
surprised.
Into a lithophane, yeah.
Yeah, and so then when we found out we could do this, that's when we started doing the sonograms for the blind.
Yeah, okay.
Because the blind people, we make like a little necklace and they can feel their baby's face. I mean, we might not think of that, but it's a huge deal to them. You know, to the blind folks, it was just a huge deal.
Absolutely. Well, it's cool.
I mean,
Again, I wanted to
3D printing a baby, but it's a, you know.
I just wanted to share it because I couldn't agree more that, you know, the idea is to think outside of the box, think creatively. You know, don't get caught in the trap of thinking that we're just a bunch of people that 3D print hands and arms. There's so much cool stuff that our very capable community can do. We have so many different skills, different tools available, and so just, yeah, think creatively, and more importantly, share your work like Rick is doing here, so others can do the same.
And one of the guys also shared a link that on this post. One of them shared a lithophane. That's actually a very good site. I don't use them personally, but I have tried them and they're very good. Those of you that use Simplify 3D, there's an awesome lithophane creator built right into that, and most people don't even know it. And it's right in your, you know, it's right in your slicer.
I think they have that in Cura too. I haven't messed with it, but I seem to, because I know you can import an image.
Well, Cura, 3D Simplify is based on Cura, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on. The last one I wanted to highlight is from Byron White, and he's seeking a Nick finger. It's maybe, I don't know if it's a trend yet, but it is interesting that we're seeing these requests for people seeking devices. In these case, both of these are seeking devices for themselves, but just the idea that we're seeing these device requests on the hub. You know, we know we're kind of stuck a little bit in a in-between phase with our matching platforms, still trying to figure out what to do there. And so I don't know if people are kind of at a point where they're feeling like, you know, e-NABLE Web Central doesn't, you know, work, so I'm going to just post my request in the hub, or if it's because they weren't aware of e-NABLE Web Central. But it does sort of, you know, make me feel like it would be nice to make some progress on that and kind of figure out what we're going to do with our matching platforms and get people some clarity on that. I mean, for now, honestly, I'm telling people, you know, I've even told people that come to me and ask about how to go about this. I've told them, you know, you might want to just post something in the hub because, you know, you might have a better chance of, you know, getting a response that way. So anyway, Byron is looking for a Nick finger, and then he's hoping to make them for others once he's in a better situation. And he got some offers to help. Terry only has red and black ABSR at the moment, but and then Holly also offered to help. So I guess we're just waiting for Byron to respond to one of them at this point. Oh, and on that last, I'm sorry, on the last post that we were talking about, not this Rick one, but the one for Dare or Dare Blue, Sarah, do you know how to share a link to a YouTube video where it goes to a specific point in the video? You know, when you go to share the link and there's a checkbox that says, you know, start at a certain time. One of the other things that Ben would do for us after these meetings is, if there's at this point where we're kind of answering people's questions and stuff, he would actually follow up and post a comment on this post with a link to that part in our video where we were talking about that, as a way of saying, hey, we talked about this in today's town hall, you know, check out this part of the recording. So if that's something you wouldn't mind helping us with, that would be terrific, just as a
Yeah,
follow-up.
absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so in terms of recurring meetings, it doesn't look like we don't have any meetings today after this one. Is that right, Ben? I didn't see
For the month, we've
done for the
done
month.
the full cycle. Yeah.
Okay, so I assume you've been through this with Sarah already, but did you guys talk about the monthly summaries you've been putting together, these things?
Yeah, I gave a sort of a quick overview of the summaries that we've been doing, and
okay, great.
Yeah.
So there's, I guess, is Sarah going to be taking the lead on putting together the October event summary at some point?
I'll work on that with Sarah, and I think because we have the event leaders, I think they can be managing the sort of the preparation for it. So
great.
John's got the chapter leaders. Rick has the new member meetup. Adam has the enabling healthcare professionals or healthcare. So just as a quick reminder to everybody, think about your topics for the month coming up. It'd be great if it's possible to just sort of shoot an email to me and Sarah. I included Sarah's email in the chat. And let us know what you're thinking for October. It'd be really great to get the post out as early as possible. Next Friday is the Bionics meeting. That's the first in the rotation. So that's all coming up.
Adam, does the healthcare meetup have a recurring date yet? Is that like happening on a certain day?
Ben, is that like the third Thursday or something? Where are we putting that?
I think we set it up as, let me pull it up really quick.
And is that, oh, here it is, Enable Healthcare. So it's on a
We set it up as the fourth Monday, basically the last Monday, or the fourth Monday of the month.
Gotcha. God, was that first meeting this week? Oh my God. Wow, long week.
And it was great, by the way. What an awesome conversation.
Oh, it was amazing. She is, man, Tainara she is just so man, she is an innovative and really empathetic person, and she yeah. I encourage everyone on this call who wasn't in attendance to go back and listen to that, because she's doing some incredible work down in Brazil. And I think she's going to be a great member of this community.
Wonderful.
Great. Yeah, and that's looking it's looking like it. Now the Bionic meeting and the education meeting, it sort of depends on how the week comes together.
Sure.
In terms of which is first.
Right.
But we do have things set up. So there's Mondays and Fridays, 12 p.m., 1 p.m. All that is sort of up for changing if people find that the timing doesn't align with their community groups. But each of the chapter or each of the meeting leaders is also managing a space. So there's a Bionics space, there's an education space, there's a chapter leader space, there's a new member space. And maybe just a quick reminder too. So we still have the device pilots meeting on the calendar, and in this list that has sort of fallen by the wayside because we don't have a volunteer in the community that can lead that. That could be something for us to revisit. I think, or whether it's renaming it or not, having device users getting together, sharing their experiences, I think would be really super powerful. And we've had some incredible meetings in the past. So that I think that's something to revisit in the months ahead.
There's a link here that goes to a page in I think this is in the wiki, where we have a playlist of all of our Enable events, Enable town hall meetings, our new member meetups, etc. Now for this was a really smart way to set this up. Ben did this because that way we don't have to come in and revise this page all the time. It just shows the playlist. But for this to work, somebody needs to be going into our YouTube channel and adding these recordings to the appropriate playlists. And I believe Ben has always done that, right? So I don't know if you mentioned that to Sarah, but that would be something we'd look for help with.
Great.
So,
yep.
So like for right now, this very meeting is being live streamed, and so it will be recorded in our YouTube account, but it'll just be sitting there as a video. It won't be part of this. So somebody has to go in and add that to the Enable Town Hall Meetings playlist, and then it'll show up here as the most recent video.
So Sarah and Ben, as you're doing this knowledge transfer, I think Ben has done quite a good job of documenting what he does. But Sarah, you will find, as is the case with documentation, that there are missing pieces. So if you use this as an opportunity to at least flag the information that would improve the documentation that either you hand off to someone else or we do when we have to fill in for you or something along those lines, that would be great. And then you will become the keeper of the knowledge, but also we'll have a backup, Sarah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're actually coming up on the end of the meeting here. We took our time on some of these sort of administrative things, which is fine. It was all time well spent. I don't think we had anything urgent on the agenda, but before I go through, I was going to talk about a few of the things I see here under Ben's transition plan, just to make sure we touched on everything we need to, but I want to make sure that Adam doesn't need time to talk about the Afghanistan situation. Did you have anything you wanted to go over today, Adam?
You know, the only thing I wanted to mention is that with Ben kind of changing his role and with Sarah stepping in, I might want to debrief her when we meet next week to review what's been done and what still needs to be done. Yeah, but that's nothing, really no major updates. I've been trying to coordinate a next meeting with my folks on the ground in Afghanistan, in Kabul. Yeah, Sarah, we will. I'll give you a full recount of that via email before we touch base. Oh, and regarding a meeting, actually, you know what? Eric just emailed and said that his meeting canceled this afternoon. For anyone who wanted to be on, Jeremy, Sarah, Ben, would you be interested / available in meeting around would we call it between 3 and 4 p.m. Eastern time today?
I'm available.
I'm looking now.
I'm on Central Time, and if the meeting is before 5 p.m. Central Time, so 4 p.m. Eastern, if it were
it would be the other way. So 5 p.m. Central is 6 p.m. Eastern.
6
yeah.
Eastern. So yeah.
Could you meet at 2 or 3 p.m. Central Time today?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So Jeremy, 3 p.m. Chicago time would work.
Sure.
Okay. Great. I will. I'll send out a message to this little group then on the hub, and we'll set a time.
Fantastic.
That's great. I'm not sure I can make it, but send me an invite and I'll try to make it.
Okay, will do. Thanks, John.
Okay, let's just talk about a couple of these other things here. Annual report for our donors. Is that something that...
Sorry,
Ben...
I've got to drop. Thank you all.
Okay, thanks,
day.
Adam. Ben and John, are you working on that annual report?
I pulled up the template. We sort of glossed over it. Sarah and I glossed over it together. Having the structure there is great. I think
okay.
I think going through it this month will be fine.
Okay, so you're going to kind of just do that collaboratively? Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Yeah, I volunteered that if they can provide the content, I'll do a rewrite and a polishing. Now that Sarah's on board,
maybe
it remains to be seen, but I think we've got it covered. And
okay.
there's no, it's it's due around now, but I don't think there's any hard deadline. So
November is when we shared last year.
okay.
So actually, I've got a quick question before anybody else drops out.
Yeah.
Just as an idea, and I think we have enough people in here to do a vote, but I think it would be great to get Sarah on this fellowship starting in October, which starts tomorrow. I know it's a pretty fast shift for her. I can be available after hours through the month of October. Would everybody be okay with me taking sort of a halftime for the month of October? So half of what is the full fellowship, I'll join for sort of half of those hours. It'll be with John, with Sarah, following up with Jeremy and others, helping to sort of guide the annual report and some other things. I'll do my best to make it easier for Sarah too.
Exactly. There's going to be a lot of transition time involved. So it makes sense for that to happen over a sort of a 1 month period. That makes sense to me.
So just to be clear, Sarah is in a position to take on the full number of hours that you have been doing, which I think is 20. And you're suggesting that we additionally pay for 10 of your hours. And I think that's a really good deal.
Yeah. So let's just be specific about if you don't mind us talking numbers here, Ben. What is half of the monthly amount?
Exactly. $750 for the month of October.
Perfect. So it's under $1,000 threshold. So let's just make this easy here and take a vote with those present. All in favor of allocating an extra $750 to Ben for the transition process. Okay, done.
It's great.
Okay, I think that's a
good.
And Ben,
you can pop a note to Evan about that.
Oh, yeah. There was one more thing before we wrap. I wanted to just touch on the chapter audit. It's something we've been going back and forth on for a long time. We usually do sort of an annual audit of chapters, which is a matter of sort of reaching out to each of the chapters to make sure they're still active and trying to collect some basic metrics from them along the way. And we've tried different ways, like putting together a Google form and then asking them to fill it out. And then that, of course, that goes into a spreadsheet. We've tried more manual approaches. Always the challenge is, of course, getting people to fill out the form or getting them to respond to emails. We have been putting off this year's chapter audit for a long time now. And I'm just wondering now, I don't want to add anything in the transition period here with Sarah, because I know she's going to have a lot to pick up, but you know, maybe a month or a couple of months out, I wonder if that might be something that Sarah could help with. But food for thought. I just know that that was something that that Ben had helped with in the past.
Quick question for Rick. Rick, you were digging into that for a little while. What are the obstacles there currently for doing the email audit?
I really had none, no obstacles. Oh, okay. The only thing I was looking at was a form that everybody had agreed on. I had built an auto mailer, and what the auto mailer has the ability to do is send all of these things out and then track responses. But someone said they didn't need it, so I kind of backed off.
So that was a mistake. That was a mistake. We thought that.
Not necessarily. I mean, we'd have to, I guess I'd have to look at what the autoresponder, when you say it can track responses, I'd have to get a better understanding of what that is. Does it go into a spreadsheet or a report, or how does it do that? But the Google, what's nice about the Google form is the responses go right into a Google sheet. So it's all data that can be easily tallied and edited and reported on later. So maybe you and I need to have a follow-up then, Rick, just to compare those two options and then pick one and go, it sounds like.
I was just looking to just move the rock. You know, to me, whatever works best for everybody is fine. I mean, it's not like we're talking tens of thousands. We're talking about a couple of hundred. Yeah. So when you're talking about those kinds of numbers, I just, to me, whether it'd be nice to automate it for next time. Sure. And it'd be nice, but it would be nice to have an actual baseline that we could look at and know it's accurate. And then build on, sorry, my moose is barking. And then, you know, just maybe just a tracking mechanism that wouldn't even be a year. Maybe it was just every so often we could ping them. But I'm open. I just wanted to have something if someone asked.
Got it. Okay, so I guess I was holding that up then. Sorry. So you and I will have to get a meeting, Rick, and we can look at options and then move that forward. Either one of those sounds like it should be pretty doable.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just the numbers, the raw numbers are so small.
Yeah,
that it's just,
like I said, the whole challenge is just getting responses.
Yeah.
So I don't, unfortunately, I don't think technology can help us so much with that unless we just, maybe it's repeat emails or bold text or something, but we'll have to talk about it.
We have had a few tricks. One trick is if it's a chapter we really care about, reaching out to them and saying, we're thinking about doing a profile of your chapter is a good way of getting their attention.
Yep.
And that might be a nice way for Sarah to begin meeting some of the remote chapters. So we can work on it. But what I do hear is that,
as I recall, I think when Bob did this, some of the people that didn't respond, it then turned into kind of a manual effort of, okay, let's go look at their Facebook page. Let's go look at their website. And from that, try to gather evidence that, yes, they're still active. Yeah. So we don't necessarily get the answers we want then in terms of how many devices have you made, how, this, that, and the other thing, but at least we would know they're still active. But at that point, it becomes more of a manual sort of investigation process.
I've got a quick suggestion. I think if Rick and Jeremy can come up with some sort of a email forum, a form to send out in an email to the whole list. If that's possible, and we've got plenty of previous models, if that's possible to send out early October, as in
sure.
Maybe even at the conclusion of a meeting or two together. That'll give us some numbers, and maybe what Sarah and I could do would be reach out specifically to 10 chapters, the specific ones that we've done chapter spotlights on, and get updated data from them. And I think between the two,
that's how you did the summary last time. You kind of pick those key chapters and then extrapolate it out of that data. And
we can do some projections, and they're not going to be perfect, but it'll give us a sense of the growth in a year, and that's actually pretty good. So we can find out, specifically 10 chapters, how much have they grown in 1 year? We can get some background information that can give us a little bit more, I think, ability to project it. So
I think that's a great idea. All right. So Rick and I need to get together and figure out the back end option for that and come up with the right questions that we want to be asking, and then we can move forward on that.
Maybe what we could do is we could pick maybe a dozen chapters and just use them as a test, so we just don't shotgun everybody, and just see how it works and what fails, and then clean up that dozen, and then when it works, then open it up to the 200 plus.
Maybe, yeah. Okay, you and I get a meeting. We can go over the options.
That's fair.
We've run a little long. I'm going to let people get on with their days. Sarah, so happy to have you with us. Thank you. I'll see you all next time. Have a great week.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
See you guys later.